Hello Rebels and welcome back to my life. So this is going to be a really quick recap of this week's Game of Thrones episode, but it's still going to be longer than my normal 4-minute videos because there's just too much to cover in an hour-long TV show. However, I will try to keep it as short as I possibly can, so here we go. Obviously, spoilers ahead for this week's episode, but not for the books. So this episode starts off with Arya living in the House of Black and White in Braavos, trying to become a faceless man. A faceless woman. I guess they can change back and forth, can't they? Boy, talk about gender fluidity. We don't have time for this, Garrett. Move on! And the faceless man she originally met is like, oh, you're not ready, and she's like, I'm totally ready. And then this random girl shows up and starts smacking her, saying, who are you? And Arya's like, no one. But then the faceless man is like, if you're no one, then why do you have all of Arya's stuff? So she ditches all of her belongings in the ocean, except that when it comes to her sword, Needle, she can't do it. Remember, Jon Snow gave her that sword, and her father hired a Braavosi instructor to teach her how to use it. It's her most important possession, so she hides it in the stones near the temple, and that's cool. It's a good character moment. It felt very consistent with who she is. It seemed like something that I would do. But whenever a character does something that I would do, it always turns out bad for them in this show, so... And then back in the House of Black and White, she starts helping the other girl clean corpses, which, ew. So obviously they're putting Arya through a sort of Karate Kid Mr. Miyagi training program, which kind of works as a montage in a 2-hour movie. Over the course of several weeks of a TV show, it could get pretty boring. Fortunately, there's more exciting things going on with our other favorite Stark who's not really a Stark, Jon Snow. So Stannis offered Jon Snow the chance to become a Stark and rule Winterfell, something he's wanted all his life, but now he's the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, so he has to turn him down. And in that conversation, Stannis said something really interesting, which is that Ned Stark's honor is what got him killed, which is true, but Stannis has always been about honor and duty above all else. Afterwards, Ser Davos stays behind to talk to Jon for a second and say, you know, the best thing to do to protect the kingdoms of men might be riding with Stannis. Just a thought. We'll see where that little worm of an idea leads. Who knows what could happen? Book readers. Book readers know. Later, Jon starts dishing out his orders as the Lord Commander. One of his first actions is to promote Janos Slynt to First Ranger, which is a good political move. It's like naming your chief running opponent the vice president after the primaries. There was a rift in the group, now it's all patched up, everything's good, right? No, not exactly, because Janos Slynt's right-hand man can't just be cool, dude. He refuses Jon's orders and insults him in front of the entire Night's Watch, so Jon Snow brings him outside for an execution. He pleads for mercy because he's a whiny little crybaby, and Jon Snow almost doesn't do it. We've seen him not do similar things many times in the past, so there's that real question of whether or not he's gonna do it. But it seems like Jon Snow finally does know something because he does the do. Yeah, so for anyone who thought that Jon was gonna be all rainbows and puppies as the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, 1, have you even seen this show? And 2, it's sending a clear message. He might be a basically good guy, but he's gonna do whatever he has to do to protect the kingdoms of men from the, you know, ice zombie army that's invading from the north. There's more Stark drama back at Winterfell, where Roose Bolton is talking to Ramsay Snow, or as he's now called, Ramsay Bolton. Ramsay's just killed some people, like you do, and Roose is all, you know, maybe killing everyone who works for us isn't the best way to instill workplace efficiency. He says the best way to strengthen an alliance is not by killing people, but by marriage, and he just happens to have the perfect girl for Ramsay to marry. And that's when we see Littlefinger and Sansa Stark riding for Moat Cailin, so it seems I was completely wrong about Littlefinger. He's not only bringing Sansa near Ramsay Bolton, he's getting the two of them married. This seems like complete insanity, but when Littlefinger talks to Ramsay later in the show, he says that he's never heard anything about the boy. So that could explain why he's getting the two of them hitched, or it could be that he doesn't actually care about Sansa as much as he's been saying, although I don't think that's true. Or it could be that he has a greater plan in mind. And personally, that's what I think. I mean, Littlefinger does seem to have a very pedophilic obsession with Sansa Stark, and there's no way he would marry her off without doing at least a little research on the guy he's marrying her to. And even a tiny bit of research on Ramsay Bolton would reveal that he is a complete freaking psychopath. Then Roose Bolton and Littlefinger have a conversation where Roose is like, hey, so you're betraying the Lannisters, and Littlefinger's like, yeah, psh, whatever, they're all weak and stuff. And then Roose is like, so how come I have a message for you from Cersei Lannister? You still palling around with those guys? I mean, these two are both total blatant traitors, and it's pretty obvious that any alliance that they construct is not out of any respect or friendship or anything like that. It's just beneficial to both of them for the time being. We'll see what happens. Now, fortunately, Brienne and Podrick are both following Sansa this whole time, and they are still intending to rescue her at the earliest possible opportunity, which is more important now than it has ever been. And they have a little chit-chat, and the two of them look like they're starting to become friends, which is great. They're both two fantastic characters. Which, of course, means it's probably only a matter of time before they both die. That's not a spoiler. I don't know. That's not what happens in the books, but let's be honest. The show is only paying token attention to the books at this point. But not Tolkien attention, am I right? Am I right? Apparently I am not right. We move on to King's Landing, where we start off with Marjorie getting married to Cersei's second son, Tommen. What a relief it was for everybody in the world to have a wedding where nobody died. Holy cow. Cersei is not completely happy, of course, because she's been a major B to Marjorie this entire time, and Marjorie knows it and is turning the tables on her because now she's not only married to Tommen, she's sleeping with him. And he's a teenage boy, so at this point, do you think he's going to be listening to his mother or the girl that he's, you know, yeah. Marjorie cleverly guides Tommen to the idea that Cersei should be sent home to Casterly Rock, which I'm just like, oh god, yes, please do that thing. Marjorie's being a little manipulative, and she's not being very nice to Cersei at all, but I'm totally fine with it. I don't mind that Marjorie likes power and wants power, because she seems to generally want to do good things with it. But Cersei, being Cersei, has an evil plan. The High Septon, who's basically like the Game of Thrones version of the Pope, is caught in a brothel, in a scene that I definitely cannot show you on a YouTube video. And then he's marched through the streets by these brown-robed religious fanatics called sparrows, and he goes to the small council and asks Cersei and everybody else for help, and Cersei's like, yeah, no, I'm gonna toss you in a dungeon instead. And then she goes to the leader of the sparrows, saying she wants to promote him to High Septon, and she goes on about the sanctity of religion in the kingdom, and of course we know that's a load of bull. And in the preview for next week, we hear Cersei telling somebody, probably the High Septon, that there's a sinner in our midst. So this seems like her new plan to get rid of Marjorie, put an honest man in the position of High Septon, and then reveal to him that Marjorie is in some way a sinner, hoping that he or the sparrows will get rid of her. But then again, Cersei is not exactly free from sin herself, so we'll see if this works. Who knows? Book readers. Book readers know. One other event of note happens in King's Landing. She goes and visits Qyburn, the guy who she tasked with resurrecting the mountain after he died in his duel with Oberyn Martell, after crushing his head. And after she leaves, there's this guy under a blanket behind Qyburn that jerks and runs the whole thing, and then Qyburn like mutters soothingly to him, "Not yet, my pet, not yet." So it looks like the mountain is coming back, and that is not going to be a good thing. For anybody. Finally, we get to everyone's favorite character, not just in this show, but in any story ever, Tyrion Lannister. Seriously, if you don't think that Tyrion is just the best person ever, then you should go. Tyrion is riding in a carriage, and he's tired of being in the carriage, and Varys is riding with him, and he's the smart one in this situation. He's like, no, stay, there's a price on your head, and if anybody sees you, they'll kill you and take you to Cersei Lannister. But Tyrion is nothing if not headstrong, so he gets out of the carriage anyway in the middle of a city and goes to a brothel, and unfortunately, in that brothel is Ser Jorah Mormont, the former advisor to Daenerys Targaryen, mother of dragons, etc., etc. He spots Tyrion, and then when Tyrion goes to take a leak, Jorah sneaks up behind him, bundles him all up, and says, "I'm taking you to the queen." Now, of course, Queen Cersei was the one who wanted Tyrion dead, but I don't think Jorah would call her the queen. He's too loyal to Daenerys, so he's probably taking Tyrion to Daenerys Targaryen. Considering that's where Tyrion was headed in the first place, this isn't really too dramatic of a plot development, but it is going to be interesting having Tyrion have to face Daenerys without Varys' help. So that's this week's episode, and a lot of pawns have been moved into place for some really killer mid-season storylines. Now, as I mentioned, the show has deviated from the books quite a lot at this point. Like, I might remember incorrectly, but I don't think the Sansa storyline was even in the books. What this means, though, is that even for book readers like me, there's a whole lot of new plots and twists and things to look forward to that we're not expecting. So that just makes it more fun for everybody. No questions this week, Rebels. Just tell me in the comments what was your favorite part of this week's episode and what is your favorite theory of what's going to happen next. And please, tag your spoilers. An extra special shout out to my Patreon supporters who make all of my YouTube endeavors possible. If you enjoy the YouTube channel, check out the link in the description. If you become a patron, you get 2 secret videos every weekend. It's kind of cool. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you tomorrow. Maybe. Bye!